Good morning, students of class 11 arts. So this week also we are going to have our classes through offline videos, and we will wait for the lockdown to be stopped and we are going to face each other then. So as you know that we are dealing with the topic the three orders. In my last classes, in my last videos, I have talked about the first order, that is the priests, clergy and the monk, right? So today we will start with the second order, or the nobility. Okay. So as I said that the nobility were the aristocrats or the kings and rulers of Europe. These nobles, they were in the second. The nobility had in really a central role in the social process. Why? Because the priests, they are always aloof from the society. They are the religious people. They used to live with the religious purpose, functions, rituals and everything, and they used to live in the churches, monasteries, abbeys, and they used to live outside of the society. But the actual person who used to take care of the society, who was there to check the rules and regulations of the society, they were the nobility, right? And this nobility had another important role, that was to control the land. That means the land which is available in a nation, that land which is available in a country, which is a cultivable land, very precisely, was under the control of the nobility. The nobles used to cultivate those lands, and they used to give the lands as rent to peasants. They used to collect revenue, and with that revenue the whole nation used to work. So that is a very important work in a society. That is why there was a relationship which was created. The relationship which was created on the basis of land. Land was the main feature surrounding which different people, they roamed and they had a different kind of relationship. Like if I am a landlord, if I am a nobility, I have a huge amount of land. That land I cannot cultivate alone, so I have to give it to different peasants for cultivation. So I am giving them the land as cultivation lands. They will cultivate, and some land will be my personal land. That amount of land is not possible for me to cultivate. So there I will appoint free laborers who will come, cultivate, I will give them salary, and the product will be mine directly. And other lands, there I will give the rent as a rent. The peasants will come, they will cultivate, they will produce the product, they will sell it in the market and will give me a revenue or give me a rent. So you can understand that in both the ways, in both the systems, land is the connecting point. And as land is the connecting point, the free laborers, the cultivators and the nobility, they are connected with this land. So that is why in the beginning of the chapter I told you about feudalism, which means a relationship, a social, cultural, jurisdiction, a relationship based on land. Now social though we can understand, and economic also I can understand. Why jurisdiction? Why judicial? Because the land which I am providing to the peasants, which is near my palace or near my house, so that big land or the huge land which I as a noble is having is called as an estate. So all those cultivators, all those people who are living under my control, who are living under my protection, are under my jurisdiction. That means if anything happens to them, I will judge them, and I will ensure, as a noble, I will ensure the protection of them. That's why I as a noble will also have an amount of soldiers. I will also have an army. I will also have a castle where the army and the soldier will be there. And in medieval Europe, the army and the soldiers, they were known as knights. So in a way, the nobility or the noble people, they used to have a huge land which was known as estate or manorial estate, where he had his own house, his own palace, along with different villagers, mainly peasants, who are there to cultivate his land and the other lands. There were carpenters, there were blacksmiths, there were other people who used to help the noble, and there were castles where knights and other soldiers used to stay. So you can see that these villages, these big estates, were like an independent sovereign state, like the Bardhaman Rajbari or the Bardhaman Raja. He was like a big zamindar. He was a nobility. He had a huge zamindari. He had a huge land. He had his huge palace. Everything was like or was considered with a Raja. Right? So he was a zamindar. He was not a Raja. He was a zamindar. He was a big zamindar. Like that, the nobles were there. And as we are always talking about lords, landlords, these lord, the word is very important, because we call lord to the god, right? God is named as lord, and here also the nobles are also called as landlord or only lord. That means these people consider themselves to be the actual god in practice for those people who are under them, who are working under them, who are working for them, actually. Understood? And this relationship involved elaborate rules and exchange of vows taken on the Bible. That means when you are becoming my peasant, you cannot just like that be my peasant. You have to take some vows, you have to be very loyal with me, and other rituals you have to do according to the Bible. By what the Bible will say, what the Bible will suggest, you have to follow that. So you have to go through all these rules and regulations to be a proper peasant under a proper noble, right? The nobles, they enjoyed a privileged status, which I just now said. He had absolute control over his property, and he could raise troops called feudal levies. The lord held his own court of justice and could even coin his own money. That means he can use his name in the money itself. That means his estate was so huge that he could use his own money like a nation, like a state, like a big country which had different currency, different names in the coins, right? Now, so his house was called manor, as I said. His private land were cultivated by peasants who were also expected to act as foot soldiers in battle. So not only the soldiers were enough, but sometimes his peasants who used to cultivate his own land, they were also included in the army as foot soldiers if the number of soldiers were less. Okay, so now we will discuss about the manorial estate. A manorial estate means where the lord used to stay, and he had his own house which is known as the manor house. He controlled villages, sometimes 100 villages. Just imagine 100 village, not 100 houses, 100 villages. And almost everything needed for daily life was found on the estate, like grain, that means crop, blacksmiths and carpenters to have weapons and the furnitures. Then you have women who used to spin and wove fabric. There were children who used to work on lords' wine presses. So the wine press is there, so you can have the alcohol, you can have the wine, you can have the grain, so you can have the bread, you can have the cake, you can have everything. You can have the blacksmiths and you can have your weapons ready. You have the carpenters, so you can have your furnitures. Other than this, they had big churches, big post offices, sometimes forest areas, rivers, everything included in a manorial estate. So you can understand how big the manorial estates were. So with this, I'll stop here. In my next class, we will talk about the ninths.